priority, protecting our world from injuries, putting all we can for the future we see. For we think safety, safety for our people, safety in your workplace and your home. Yes, we think safety, safety in our nation, and a healthier, brighter future for all people. For we think safety, safety for our people, safety in your workplace and your home. Yes, we think safety, safety in our nation, and a healthier, brighter future for our people. So we stand for the laborer, for our vision of tomorrow starts today. So we've decided that we will see the world. So we stand up for the future we desire. For we think safety, safety for our people, safety in your workplace and your home. Yes, we think safety, safety in our nation, and a healthier, brighter future for our people. For we think safety, safety for our people, safety in your workplace and your home. Yes, we think safety, safety in our nation, and a healthier, brighter future for our people. Whoa. We are different people from different nations, but with one voice, with one goal. Because we see safety as a priority, protecting our world from injuries, putting all we can for the future we see. For we think safety, safety for our people, safety in your workplace and your home. Yes, we think safety, safety in our nation, and a healthier, brighter future for all people. For we think safety, safety for our people, safety in your workplace and your home. Yes, we think safety, safety in our nation, and a healthier, brighter future for our people. So we stand for the laborer, for our vision of tomorrow starts today. So we've decided that we will sit and watch. So we stand up for the future we desire.
because safety.
For within safety, safety for our people.
My name is
Safety
and I work with Amazon of USA.
Thank you very much, Ernest. Safety first. Better safe than sorry. Deputy Minister for Employment and Labour Relations, Honorable Bright Reku-Brobe. IOSH President, Mr. Lawrence Webb. Former IOSH President, Engineer Kayode Fowode. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my name is Emmanuel Elankra. I work with Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, and on behalf of Institution of Occupational Safety and Health, I'd like to thank you for coming and welcome you to the 3rd IOSH West Africa Conference. This is under the theme, Occupational Safety and Health as a Fundamental Labor Right. A little housekeeping, I'm sure you'll be looking around for the program. Upon registration, you were sent an SMS message. Please click on the link on there and the full program will be there available to you in color. Let me give us a little overview of this. So please, you can check the program on your phones right now. It's there. The International Labour Organization, ILO's adoption of a safe and healthy working environment as one of its fundamental principles and rights at work was a very monumental step forward for the way working people are treated around the world. In order to ensure that these are not just words and declarations on paper, steps are supposed to be taken for that to be real and make a real difference on the ground and directly in people's lives. To that end, this conference shall gain insights from various professionals in IOSH roles, as well as those in many related industries, government bodies, corporate organizations, development partners, academics, and others. Ladies and gentlemen, all workers in every corner of all of West Africa are counting on us, those of us right here in this room, to make this a day-by-day reality. We should not rest until this is done. Now, these are not my words. These are backed by confirmations and solidarity messages from authorities in IOSH practice. We are going to take our first message appropriately from the IOSH President, from the IOSH President. Let's welcome him for a brief message, Mr. Lawrence Webb. Please welcome him.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to see so many of you here today. It's my pleasure, it's my privilege, and it's an honour to be here. So I'd like to give a fantastic welcome to the Honourable Deputy Minister. For those who are here, Director Generals, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Today is going to be a fantastic day. I've been here for 3 days. I've had nothing but a warm welcome. I've had nothing but fantastic support for what we're going to discuss today. And I hope that as many of you as possible can network with each other and really build on this massively important message of occupational safety and health being a fundamental principle and right for those at work. And I'm sure that we all share the same vision as IOSH, a safer and healthier world of work. So thank you for the invitation. I'll be addressing you in more detail later. I look forward to that. But thank you for coming and thank you for your support. It's going to be a great day. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Our second message is from the CEO of IOSH. It will be coming on video. Is it ready? It's ready. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take our second message from the CEO of IOSH, Ms. Vanessa Hardwood-Wichter.
I have great pleasure in welcoming you to the IOSH 2023 West Africa Conference, I am delighted that today, at the first ever conference hosted by IOSH in Ghana, we are graced by the presence of delegates, not only from all areas of the host country, but also from all areas of Nigeria, as well as from the Côte d'Ivoire, Senegal, South Africa and Tanzania. This coming together of representatives from so many African nations is a momentous occasion and a truly significant event in the development of IOSH that gives me immense pride and optimism. In Ghana, the passing of the Occupational Safety and Health Bill will greatly enhance the likelihood for inward investment that is needed for jobs and prosperity. We see the collective desire for this kind of change from employers, workers, organisations, ministries and non-governmental organisations, which is not just happening in Ghana, but also reflected in the developments taking place in other countries who are represented here today. It is just a few months since the International Labour Organization adopted Occupational Safety and Health, OSH, as a fundamental principle and right at work. We have taken this as our theme of our conference because we understand that we now have a historic opportunity. We must seize the moment to translate this declaration into practical actions for governments, businesses and workers so that we can make a real difference to working people's lives. IOSH believes that building the capacity of the OSH profession is the most effective way of achieving this. We need to ensure that our profession demonstrates the highest levels of core technical and behavioural competence, that it meets exacting standards of ethical practice, and that it continues to strive to be better in all it does. The safety and health profession has a central role to play in supporting workers, businesses, and of course the wider economy and society to prosper together. For the last 4 years, and despite the interruption caused by the COVID pandemic, IOSH has been supporting the Ghanaian Ministry of Employment and Labour Relations and working with Ghanaian NGOs, the Labour Inspectorate and employer organisations. In December last year, we were pleased to co-host with the Ministry a high-level roundtable meeting in Accra, welcoming representatives from government, business, trade unions and global bodies like the World Health Organization and the International Labour Organization. That important event was part of a process of supporting the government to establish national legislative and administrative structures in the management of occupational safety and health. Many of you here are IOSH members, but there are also a good number who are encountering us for the first time. I seriously believe that the best way in which you can help build OSH capacity in West Africa is to become a member of IOSH. You would be joining the professional chartered body representing over 49,000 occupational safety and health professionals in more than 130 countries. Chartered membership of IOSH is recognised in the business world as the hallmark of professional excellence in workplace safety and health. We have seen a huge growth in IOSH membership in West Africa since we launched the division's inaugural conference in Lagos way back in September 21. I am delighted to see that the number of members based in Ghana and Nigeria has doubled in that period. What this clearly demonstrates is that more and more workplaces are realising the benefits of good health and safety practice. There is a growing need for the skills and experience that IOSH professionals uniquely possess. IOSH's purpose is to be the authoritative and credible voice of the profession, and to develop its members so that they can exert more influence in their roles. Before closing, I must just say a few words about IOSH volunteers. These are the people who give their time freely as committee members, making sure that meetings take place, that fellow members are keeping up to date with their professional development, and that information is shared. These are all vital activities without which this conference would not have happened, and without which the 4 regions in West Africa Division couldn't function. On behalf of everyone at IOSH, I thank them for their unstinting work. But voluntary effort need not be restricted solely to activities which directly benefit the region. Did you know that just over 2 years ago, one member from West Africa was part of IOSH's presidential team? Coyote Fawodi is probably well known to many of you. He's done so much to champion the cause of occupational safety and health in Nigeria, and he served IOSH with distinction in his capacity as one of our vice presidents. I'd like to lay down a challenge to you all today, and that is to help us find a future president of IOSH who comes from this region. That will be a wonderful day that I look forward to with great excitement. I hope you take full part in the conference discussions and debates. Make sure your voice is heard, and take the opportunity to glean as much as you can from our speakers and our contributors, of course, and as well as from each other in our networking sessions. I wish you all a very successful and enjoyable conference.
Thank you very much. I know she's not here, but she's watching us online. I don't think she will appreciate the applause, so let's do it better for her. We should get it. Ladies and gentlemen, the National Petroleum Authority views occupational safety and health as a matter of utmost priority. Indeed, they will be with us throughout this conference from the beginning to the end. They also have a message for us, and to deliver that message is none other than the Chief Executive of the authority. Please welcome Dr. Mustafa Abdul Hamid, CEO of National Petroleum Authority.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, praise be to Allah, Lord of the worlds, Master of the Day of Judgment. You alone, we worship you alone, we ask for help. Guide us onto the straight path, the path of those on whom you have bestowed your favor, not of those who go astray, nor of those who earn your anger. I greet you this morning in the greetings of Islam, saying to you, Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I wish to thank the Institute of Occupational Safety and Health for making the National Petroleum Authority a key part of this conference and asking us to say a word at the very beginning of this conference. I guess that it's obvious to everybody when they hit the streets about how safety and health is important for a regulator like the National Petroleum Authority. Immediately you hit your streets and then you see a BRV on your street, a bulk road vehicle, what we call in Ghana tanker. You know, you would see boldly emblazoned on every tanker, highly flammable, or some would say highly inflammable. I'm not a grammarian, I don't know which is accurate. But basically, all of it seeks to draw attention to the fact that I'm carrying petroleum products, I'm carrying a product that is flammable. And so that immediately underscores to a casual observer the importance that safety plays in the operations of the National Petroleum Authority. And so we are excited that you have chosen the theme Occupational Safety and Health as a fundamental human right. It is important that we prioritize the safety of workers. And when we talk about the safety and health of workers, what immediately comes to our mind is their physical safety and the protection of the worker from injury and so on. So many organizations, especially within the petroleum industry, would celebrate 1,000 days of going without work-related injuries and so on. That is cause for celebration in many organizations. However, as an academic, I want to sound controversial a bit and say that I think that we should go beyond just the physical safety of our workers and to also include in the definition of health and safety the psychological and mental safety of workers. Because there are stories in this country where some frustrated worker has come and set the workplace ablaze, or some frustrated worker has come and poisoned, if you want, ordinary attendees to a restaurant. He or she works for a restaurant. He or she thinks that the owner is not paying them well, is not paying attention to their psychological and mental stability and so on. And therefore, to vent their frustration, they then poison the food, and then hundreds and thousands of ordinary patrons to the restaurant die or suffer thereby. And therefore, I am thinking that we should go beyond the traditional definitions of what safety and health is, and to include all the gamut of factors, both sociological, psychological, psychosocial, whatever the academics will say, you know, in prioritizing the health and safety of our workers. The other controversial point that I want to raise is the one, the age-long argument between socialist economists and capitalist economists about whether the entrepreneur is the most important factor of production or it is labor. So socialists say that labor is the most important factor of production, and capitalists say that the entrepreneur is the most important factor of production. And so it dovetails into the traditional argument about the chicken and the egg, which was first. Whether it is the entrepreneur's money that keeps labor afloat, or it is the efforts of labor that keeps the entrepreneur afloat. And so for me, the way that we can resolve the argument is to see the entrepreneur and labor as equal partners, if you want. Or maybe equality may sound awful in some ears. But let me say, let us agree that all of the factors of production are building blocks. Okay? They all constitute pillars that keep the entire labor and economic fabric of our society afloat. And that if one of the pillars is removed or challenged, then the entire edifice is basically in jeopardy. Once we do that, then we would begin to take labor issues very seriously. In Ghana, we have a labor act. They call it Act 651, which provides for the promotion, protection, and improvement of the health and safety of workers in the country, and outlines the responsibilities of employers, workers, and the government in ensuring safety, health, and the safety and health of workers. For us in the National Petroleum Authority, I just want to give you a scope of the kinds of health and safety issues that we deal with. The National Petroleum Authority regulates the supply of petroleum products largely as fuels for mobility in the transport sector and as heating fuels in the power and food industries, as well as we monitor the non-energy use of products, which includes asphalt for our road construction, lubricants for machinery, etc., etc. All of this fall within the purview of the National Petroleum Authority. The scope of the mandate therefore demonstrates the importance of the downstream petroleum industry as a major contributor to Ghana's GDP. The economists put it at about 6% of GDP. The NPA, in exercising its mandate, has licensed 26 categories of petroleum service providers along the value chain, and all involved in the handling of petroleum products and provision of related services. The configuration of the industry is heavily reliant on critical infrastructure, comprising 1, discharge facilities. So we have licensed 5 discharge facilities, so far 3 refineries, 26 storage terminals. In terms of the distribution network, we have currently on our roads, and I'll use the ordinary term, 4,450 tankers that are crisscrossing the length and breadth of our country distributing petroleum products. And each one of them is registered. In other words, no BRV or tanker carries petroleum products on our road which is unknown to the National Petroleum Authority. And this is supposed to help us to monitor the safety of these BRVs. We have 2 pipelines. We have 4,835 petroleum and LPG outlets across the country, what we ordinarily call filling stations. So we have 4,837 of them, and then we have other allied facilities for the distribution of petroleum products. So this is quite a huge industry and poses a huge challenge to the National Petroleum Authority in terms of ensuring the safety of the downstream sector. The last time we had a major incident in this country involving an LPG filling station was the one at Atomic. And since then, to date, we have tried to keep accidents in the industry at basically 0 levels. And that is because we have ramped up the training of our inspections, monitoring, and health and safety directorates, which ensures that at every point in time, so even as we speak, there are MPA inspections and monitoring officers across the length of the country now, basically looking at the safety of our filling stations and LPG filling points. So we have implemented a comprehensive training program for our field inspectors. We have a robust inspections regime, and unless you have a no objection from the National Petroleum Authority, you cannot go ahead and begin to site a filling station and so on and so forth. So as most of you will be aware, economic considerations tend to override health, safety, and well-being of workers and the general public because there's a misconception that occupational safety and health weighs heavily on cost with no tangible benefits to providers' bottom line. However, the opposite is the case, where secured and reliable work environment systems reward in the long run and lead in the long run to the safety and safeguard of business success. In conclusion, I would like to thank the Institute of Occupational Safety and Health for bringing us together today and to express my gratitude and the gratitude of the National Petroleum Authority to all of you for your dedication to health and safety. I hope that this conference will be an opportunity for all of us to reflect on the important role that we play in protecting the health and safety of workers and to recommit ourselves to the critical work. Let us leave here today with a renewed sense of purpose and a determination to do everything in our power to ensure that every worker has the right to a safe and healthy work environment. A life lost is lost forever and can never be brought back or recompensed by money or the magnitude. As the President of the Republic of Ghana said once, he knows how to bring economies back alive, but he doesn't know how to bring people alive. As an entrepreneur, you may be able to recoup your losses even when the business goes down at some point. But I'm not sure that you have the capacity to revive people who have died in your work environment. I thank you for the opportunity, and God bless us all.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. As the conference is going on, in case you have any questions, you can please go live to www.slido.com, Slido as in SLIDO.com, and enter the code #WAC 2023. That's in WAC as in West African Conference, #WAC 2023. That's the code you enter when you go to www.slido.com. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the Ministry of Employment and Labor Relations, through the Department of Factories Inspectorate, which is heavily represented here, has been responsible for the enforcement of occupational safety and health standards at workplaces. And through its stakeholders, it's been working assiduously to ensure that occupational safety and health is constantly improved in Ghana. Here to articulate their support for this conference and also articulate government's policy in the direction we are headed this morning, please welcome the Deputy Minister for Employment and Labor Relations, Honorable Bright Rekubrobe.
Chairman of the occasion, Vice Chancellor, President of IOSH, Your Excellencies, Chief Executives and Director Generals of state institutions, business leaders and captains of industry, social and development partners, safety and health professionals, distinguished invited guests, friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen. Feels great to be in your company this morning for the 3rd edition of the IOSH West Africa Conference. I bring you greetings from my minister, the Honorable Ignatius Bafwewa, the Minister for Employment and Labor Relations, who would have wished to be in our midst in person to have interacted with us, but unfortunately, he has had to attend to other equally important sector obligations. Indeed, that is why the ministers have deputies. Otherwise, what will I be doing? I have to attend this very important program for him and to grace the occasion. He actually insisted that I represent him at all costs. And you know, Parliament has also resumed since yesterday. So I may not stay longer with you. I may have to take leave of you at some point in the program. This conference has come at an opportune time when Ghana is developing a national action plan on business and human rights. The National Action Plan is in response to the United Nations Guiding Principles on Businesses and Human Rights, which seek to prevent, address, and remedy human rights abuses occasioned by the actions and inactions of business entities. It may interest you to know that the Ministry of Employment and Labor Relations is represented on the Shraj-led steering committee that is tasked to develop the National Action Plan, and I have no doubt that the outcome of this conference would feature prominently in the final document. Mr. Chairman, I believe we are all aware that the global economy has undergone major socio-economic shifts over the past decade with vast transformation in the world of work. The advent of emerging advanced technologies in the form of robotics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, mobile technology, cloud-based technology, and Internet of Things are changing the organization and production of work. These technological advancements are not without risk, they are not without hazards or complexities. As policymakers, we cannot pretend to be unaware of the dangers and risk factors these innovations may pose to human existence. This conference should therefore remind us of the overwhelming importance of occupational safety and health. This is because high numbers of work-related injuries and deaths continue to be recorded annually across the globe, according to estimates from the ILO. The consequences in terms of rehabilitation, compensation, the man-hours lost, and production are worrying. The prevailing situation is disturbing, with severe implications for the enjoyment of fundamental human rights and freedoms. It is for this reason that the ministry associates itself with this conference to continually raise awareness on occupational safety and health at all times. On behalf of the Honorable Minister, I express heartfelt gratitude to IOSH for the sustained interest in the organization of the West Africa OSH Conference. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the theme, occupational safety and health as a fundamental human right, is most appropriate in view of the growing importance of occupational safety and health in the changing world of work. The current state of occupational safety and health management in Ghana needs drastic improvement. As we speak, the national policy and legal framework for the effective administration of occupational safety and health is not comprehensive enough. At the same time, coordination and governance of OSH at the national and enterprise levels are so fragmented that we cannot boast of any comprehensive real-time data on OSH to inform policy decisions. In situations where data even exists, it does not completely reflect the true situation on the ground. Many of you bear testimony that these same concerns were echoed last year in December at the Tank Palace Hotel during the high-level roundtable discussion on the state of OSH in Ghana. The disregard for OSH standards in the world of work accounts for the increasing occupational diseases, injuries, and deaths. Sadly, most of these incidents are preventable and a blatant violation of human rights. We owe it a duty as social partners and stakeholders to place a high premium on human lives in our decision-making. We need to bear in mind that human lives remain the core object that we seek to secure and protect. Mr. Chairman, as alluded to earlier, the 110th session of the International Labour Conference adopted the inclusion of safe and healthy working conditions as part of the ILO's framework of fundamental principles and rights at work. In fact, personally, I was privileged to lead the Ghanaian delegation to the conference last year, and I vividly recall the discussions that ensued. As a matter of fact, the adoption of the resolution does not only underscore ILO's commitment to decent work and social justice, but also reinforces Ghana's commitment to the tenets of Chapter 5 of the 1992 Constitution of Ghana, which guarantees that the fundamental human rights and freedoms of all persons shall be respected and upheld by all organs of government and shall be enforceable by the courts. It further guarantees that every person in Ghana, whatever his race, place of origin, political opinion, the color, religion, creed, or gender, shall be entitled to the fundamental human rights and freedoms, but subject to respect for the rights and freedoms of others and for public interest. These constitutional provisions affirm the collective role of government, employers, workers, and civil society organizations in the promotion of IOSH as a fundamental human right. The Constitution makes it categorically clear that we must all work hand in hand to enjoy such fundamental human rights. Similarly, the resolution recognizes the devastating impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on the world of work and the need to protect workers and the work environment from the ripple effects. Given that issues of mental health as well as violence and harassment are also gaining momentum, the adoption of occupational safety and health as a fundamental human right is indeed in the right direction. As a sector, we will continually review workplace safety and health standards to ensure that IOSH is enjoyed by all as a fundamental human right. We are confident that this would have profound impact on the current and future world of work for national development. Distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to assure you that Ghana, as a member of the ILO and a signatory to many of its frameworks, will do whatever it takes to operationalize the newly adopted IOSH resolution. In particular, the Ministry of Employment and Labor Relations is taking steps to ensure that the provisions of the resolution feature in the draft National IOSH Bill and the relevant national legislations that are at advanced stages of preparation. As stakeholders, we equally owe it a duty to mainstream the provisions of the resolution into our respective workplace safety and health guidelines. I urge you all to take advantage of this landmark conference to engage in healthy exchanges of ideas that reaffirm occupational safety and health as a fundamental human rights issue. We have an obligation to ensure that IOSH infractions are not given the business as usual treatment. This is essential to guarantee the sanctity of the work environment. I'm confident that the conference will build consensus on how to integrate the resolution into the Ghanaian socio-cultural context. On behalf of the Minister, I wish you fruitful deliberations and look forward to receiving the communique that would emerge out of the conference to shape policies on occupational safety, health, and environment in Ghana. I thank you all for your attention. Thank you very much.
I'm sitting right there with them, but they never dance for me. It's never safe or healthy at all. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank the Honorable Deputy Minister. Today, we are exploring what the ILO's adoption of a safe and healthy working environment as one of its main principles, and what that means for employers and employees, and how workplace safety and health can consistently be improved. Now, particularly, this conference is looking at West Africa, but then what is the global perspective? What is the global agenda in terms of IOSH? Here to give us the global strategic plan is the IOSH Head of Strategic Engagement. And as he comes, let me say something real quick. He's almost a Ghanaian citizen. He's been in and out of the country working on these things. So we are conspiring after this conference. The moment we see him on any street, we will catch him and make him a Ghanaian. Yeah, and also he's a football fan. And whenever England disappoints him, guess which team he supports? The Black Stars. There you go. Mr. Alan Stevens, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, everybody. It's so good to be back in my second home. Deputy Minister, distinguished guests, Chief Executives, Director Generals, Mr. President, friends, it's just such an honour to be back here with you today. At IOSH, we believe in a safe and healthy world of work, and it shouldn't matter where you live, whether it's London, Lagos, Accra, Freetown. People have the right to go home every day, healthy and safe, with a smile, the well-being, you're right. You know, and that dream that we have was just a dream when I came here first of all and met you back in 2018. You remember the founding fathers, we met in a restaurant in Lagos, and we just talked about what would be possible, what could be done, what should be done, what needs to be done to keep the people safe of West Africa. And we're on that journey. Look where we've got to. Look around the room at what we've achieved in this short period of time. I'm deeply humbled, and you know, words cannot express just how wonderful you have all been. You are the superstars of IOSH. You are the superstars of the OSH profession. And I thank you on behalf of IOSH and the citizens we keep safe for everything that you do. But we didn't just dream. We've done this. We, with the support of the board and the council of IOSH and the chief executive and the senior leaders, we created something unique for West Africa to be able to flourish. Without the constraints of a traditional branch, without the rules, without the sort of regulations, we wanted to know what could be possible, what could be done if we just gave the freedom of those founding fathers to dream and to be able to create what could be done. And again, the challenge was accepted by you all. And this is something now that the whole of the IOSH network is looking at as the wonderful place to be, the fastest, well, one of the fastest growing and one of the most passionate, smart, agile, and you know, committed groups across the whole of our network. And again, I thank you for that. You only have to look at WhatsApp and Facebook and everything. You just realize how much energy goes into this. The growth of this network doesn't happen by accident. It shouts loud and it shouts proud about everything it does. And again, that doesn't happen by accident. It happens by a lot of hours put in by volunteers. So that dream's coming as a reality, and we had that first conference in Nigeria back in January 2020, and wow, weren't we just ruined by COVID? That momentum, that commitment, that promise that we were going to give the people of the region was interrupted temporarily. And I just want to reflect on what we've been doing since, before I talk about the future of where we're going. So first of all, as our Chief Executive, Vanessa, explained, that we established the West Africa division with a special set of rules where we could do more creative things and to help grow. But in the background, what we wanted to do at IOSH was to create a system in West Africa that supported the work of the OSH professional. So whilst we couldn't spend time in the region, we worked very hard with our partners across the world. And we're absolutely delighted to remind you all here today that we are the voice of the profession, and as such, we have long-term MOUs and work plans with several of the United Nations bodies, some of which are here today. We have a clear programme of work with the World Health Organization that we're going to start soon, and again, this region can be the pilot for some of those things as we roll out. And we have Dorothy that's speaking here later today. We have an MOU in place with the ILO. And after this conference tomorrow, I'm going up country to look at how we can help some of the farmers, and then also here with the textile and the garment industries, just as projects to start off. But we're seriously going to work with the ILO on things like the agriculture, textile sectors and beyond, to transfer all of those dreams that happen in Geneva to the ground to impact the workers here in this wonderful region. And over the period of the next 5 years, we're going to capture all of this in documentaries to show the progress that you as occupational safety and health professionals from the region, supported by the ministries and supported by the employer groups and supported by the trade unions, work together to make this a special place that's the aspiration of the rest of the world. We work with our great friends and fellows here from the United Nations Global Compact, again where we have an MOU in place to make sure that the employers are committed to occupational safety and health. And Tolo's got some great news and he's going to speak about this later today. Again, but they're doing a lot of things, really exciting things in the UNGC alongside us to promote occupational safety and health. We're also honoured to be an accredited organisation, the only accredited organisation from an IOSH perspective of the Commonwealth. And I was blessed to speak to the heads of government and the ministers in Rwanda earlier this year about just how occupational safety and health can deliver or contribute towards the delivering of the priorities of the Commonwealth, namely universal access to healthcare and universal access to education. And we know, and we learnt again, and we were reminded again through the COVID era, that we need to care for those that care for us. We need to care for the nurses and the healthcare workers, because if they get sick or injured, how can they treat us? And equally, as IOSH professionals, we need to prevent harm happening in the workplace so healthcare systems aren't clogged up by people that get hurt or sick that could be prevented. So enabling the healthcare systems of Ghana and Nigeria and beyond to treat people that unfortunately get sick or hurt from things that can't be prevented. IOSH is central for that ambition of the Commonwealth. And of course we know when we look at education, one of the primary reasons kids drop out of school or don't fulfil their full potential is because their parents get sick or get hurt and can't afford to pay the bills. So keeping kids in education, keeping kids to learn to fulfil their full potential is absolutely our responsibility as IOSH professionals. We impact society in so many ways. What we need to do is learn to describe that in so many ways with the communities that we benefit from. But of course, whilst we've been working with the global partners, we've also been working with our great friends at the Ministry of Labour and Employment Relations, also the Ministry of Health, and the other ministries, so the Foreign Ministry, who we work with in the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. The commitment here is fantastic. We've just got to demonstrate to the ministries that we can deliver the promise for them. So we've been doing lots of things. Outside of IOSH, I'd just like to hit you with a few statistics if you're ready for this. We've designed, ready for you, 3,500 hours worth of CPD materials. We've grown, as we've heard, to 50,000 members. Whilst we've been doing that, we've produced 17 policy positions, including policy positions around occupational safety and health as a fundamental right at work. We've conducted 128 pieces of research that we've published. We have 7,700 members of our future leaders community taking care of the future once we go to sit on the beach. And we've had 135,000 network events. I still think our network events in West Africa are up there with the best ones, but 135,000, you know. All of this, and get a load of this. During the period, we've reached 1 million people that we've taken through IOSH training courses. 1 million people throughout the world. How about that? Who else apart from IOSH can do that? But of course, the jewel in the crown is West Africa network, right? We'll look at this, what we've created. And I'd just like to say at this point that we are firmly committed to this in the future. As Work 2022, our current strategy finishes, our future strategy that will be announced in the next few weeks will have our Tier 1 partners, our good friends at the United Nations bodies, our great relationships with the ministries here, and this network firmly at the core of the strategy. We aren't going anywhere. We're going to make sure that the dream that we started back in 2018, this is just the start line. What are we going to do for the next 5 years? We're going to deliver great stuff across the region and beyond. So what does it mean for this network? Well, I would have been having conversations with the ministerial team in Sierra Leone today because they want to join. And the same thing from Gambia, all the way through to Gabon, through Togo, all the way down. The whole of the West African movement is watching you here and wants to be part of this. If we can just imagine every year between now and the next 5 years, that everybody in this room recruits just one person every year. This network will become the biggest and most powerful network in the whole of IOSH. And just what Vanessa said, you know, the future first president of IOSH from Africa is sitting amongst you today. Who it is, we'll see over time, but this will happen, I'm sure, in the next 5 years. So our projects, what we're going to do in this region, we're going to work with the World Health Organization, particularly focusing on the healthcare workers and making sure that every healthcare facility, if we can achieve this, has occupational safety and health understanding and knowledge within it, so it's a part of the core consideration of every single public health facility in this country. We're going to continue to work with the ILO in those sectors. We're going to work with our friends at the UNGC Global Compact in terms of keeping the employers working with us. We're going to continue to work with the trade unions here and the Employers Federation and groups. And we're signing up MOUs at the moment with a core collection of people, including the engineers here, to make sure that we design OSH into any factory or any construction from day one rather than an afterthought. Beyond West Africa, then we're going to look at East Africa. Next month I'm off to look at Kenya and Tanzania, and we're going to try and perhaps replicate some of the things in East Africa based upon you as the flagship and the great work that you've done here. So again, you will be not just the founding fathers of West Africa, but the model that will change and shape this wonderful continent of Africa. But more than anything, all I'd say is just please continue to dream. We'll give you the freedoms, we'll give you the flexibility, we'll give you the support. But the solutions, the OSH solutions for Africa have to come from the people of Africa. We'll provide the context, but you know, the dream I have is that in the next 5 years, I come back in 5 years' time, and we're not flying in to talk to you. You're flying out to talk to the rest of the world about how it should be done. That's my dream. I'd just really love to work with you to make that a reality. So thank you for everything you do, and I just really respect every one of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Honorable Deputy Minister, IOSH President Mr. Webb, an unsafe workplace can't be good business at all. Private employers are very much aware of this. Governments who themselves are employers are also aware of this. Just count the costs. The need to find replacement workers, the payment of workmen's compensation, which is very mandatory in Ghana, possible lawsuits, how this affects the image of the organization and its management as a whole. This can't be good for business. So, as a way of taking proactive steps to ensure that this is put in check, there needs to be some collaboration between the private and public sector, public-private collaboration. Now, over here to give us an insight into that is the Lagos State Safety Commission Director General. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Lanre Mojola. Well, is it because I mispronounced his name? Okay, then let's move. Is he in there? Okay. Let's move to the next speaker. Is Mr. Tulu Lacroix in here? Lacroix. Okay, please hold on. Okay, so for the worker, suffering injury at the workplace can't be good news. The loss can't be replaceable. Sometimes it is too late. An unsafe workplace, the results of an unsafe workplace can be too late, irrespective of how insignificant or grave the demise may be. And no matter how handsome the reparation may be, compensation or reward, a life lost is irredeemable, and a limb lost is irreplaceable. So a breadwinner can be maimed for life, or can lose his or her life, can lose his or her life forever as a result of this. So labor's involvement in this is very, very key. Occupational safety and health as a fundamental labor right and the UN global impact is what we are looking at next. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the Executive Director of the UN Global Compact Ghana, Mr. Tulu Lacroix. Did I get it right?
Thank you, sir. Hello, good morning, everyone. Oh, good morning, everyone. Thank you. It's good to be here. Besides working at the UN Global Compact, I am also a proud product of this university. I graduated in 2009. And to be back here as a presenter, as a speaker, is truly an honor. This building did not exist when I was here. But truly, it's good to be back. So just to encourage other potential students who are here that anything is possible and the future is open to you. I would like to, of course, salute the Deputy Minister and also the other distinguished VIPs who are here today, and also the IOSH President, the WHO Director, and others who are here to talk to you a little bit about the UN Global Compact and the work that we do. It's always a pleasure to talk about the UN Global Compact because the UN Global Compact is a product of Kofi Annan. It's very proud for me to say that as a Ghanaian that the Global Compact started with Kofi Annan. It started off as an initiative of 40 companies who agreed with Kofi Annan when he said that something needed to be done to put a human face on the marketplace. There are things going on in the world, globalization, there was this fear that labor was being left behind, environmental issues and concerns were left behind, and that there had to be something with regards to looking at sustainability and the worst of the world and business. And so they came up with the 10 principles of the UN Global Compact, and the compact was formed. And at the time, it was around 2000, 40 companies in New York signed this convention, signed this initiative, and joined the Global Compact. Today, the Global Compact is over 16,000 companies around the world. And that, thank you, that is a testament to the leadership of the private sector. And this leadership is very key and pivotal to the work that we do, because it's not just governments doing all the work and ensuring that the sustainable development goals are achieved or that the principles are observed. It is by businesses and business leaders taking the lead. And that's the platform that the Global Compact provides. So when speaking about promoting the respects for labor rights is in fact a very core part of what we do at the Global Compact. The principal areas of the Global Compact is human rights, labor, the environment, and anti-corruption. And when it comes to labor rights specifically, when it comes to issues of OSH, those principles are the very bedrock foundation of what it means to be a company that respects labor. Without respecting these areas, you cannot then go ahead and respect OSH or take it seriously. You have to respect all of these. So speaking on principle number 3, principle number 3 deals with businesses recognizing the rights of the freedom of association and the rights of collective bargaining. This is very, very important, and I'll explain to that in a bit. Principle 5 deals with elimination of compulsory labor or forced labor. Principle 6 follows that up with the abolition of child labor. And then the next principle, sorry, one second. Yes. So these are the principles, that we have with regards to labor. So I want to touch a little bit first on the first one. So why is it important that we recognize the principle on collective bargaining? A lot of times, the issues that affect workers, a lot of the major issues that affect workers are communicated sometimes from the bottom up. It's not always sometimes that management is aware that some of these issues are affecting the company. So that communication is very, very principal. So with these labor principles with these principles on labor rights, these are some of the most specific principles, but they're not always the most easy to implement. And putting these principles into practice may sometimes be challenging for some companies. So what we do at the Global Compact is we provide the framework to assist companies to be able to achieve these objectives. Now, the 10 principles actually predate the Sustainable Development Goals. The Sustainable Development Goals came out in 2015. However, one of the key sustainable development goals that we recognize is Sustainable Goal number 8, which is decent work and economic growth. And so all enterprises contribute to the achievement of this SDG targets within the UN Global Compact by respecting workers' rights and contributing to the priorities in their day-to-day operations. Now, violations of labor rights have been occurring throughout global supply chains and often in the lower tiers of the supply chains. So what does this mean? So what this means is effectively is that you may have big multinational companies or big companies in the former sector who understand some of these issues when it comes to workers' rights. But then the supply chains that they engage, the suppliers, the middlemen, and the other companies that provide inputs into the company may not be aware of some of these negative effects. And so what we have observed globally is that most of the violations that do occur happens to be at the lower tier of the supply chain. And so that's why for companies who are part of the Global Compact and companies everywhere, they have to take good notice of their supply chain. And so supply chain training is also something that we look at. Despite progress, decent work deficit remains alarmingly widespread. So for example, when we looked at, for example, people trapped in forced labor, we have about 24.9 million people. 160 million children are estimated to be in child labor. 79% of countries that violate the rights of collective bargaining, and 40 countries deny or constrain freedom of speech and assembly of workers. It's very difficult to have a serious OSH framework in this kind of environment. Each year, an estimated 2.7 million workers die from occupational accidents and work-related diseases, while an additional 374 million workers suffer from non-fatal occupational accidents. So that means that 7,500 people die from unsafe and unhealthy working conditions every single day. And these figures are from the ILO. So when we look at things globally, occupational accidents and diseases are estimated to constitute 5.4% of annual gross domestic product lost. So there's an economic cost when we neglect OSH. So there's an academic, so there's a cost when you're looking at on the employer side. Obviously, there's a cost when it comes to injury-related accidents. There's a cost to the employer. That cost goes into also indirect costs, the cost of retraining to get new people, to replace people. Those are costs to the employer. So when you are not investing in preventive measures, these are the things that happen. Then there's the cost to the worker themselves. There's a cost from time lost. There's a cost from lost wages if the business, especially in the informal sector. And then there's a cost also to the mental aspect. I believe one of the previous speakers mentioned that you have cases of workers coming to work because they're upset, they've lost hope, and tearing the place down. And this happens everywhere, not just in Ghana, but it happens everywhere. So mental health is actually very important. There's some companies now within the Global Compact who actually have invested in industrial psychologists in the office to assist in preventing some of these risks. Now, when it comes to the rights of a safe and healthy working environment, it is recognized by a human right under international law. All workers should be protected from occupational safe and healthy risks, irrespective of the types of jobs that they do or the size of the enterprise or where they work. In June 2020, the 110th International Labor Conference adopted a landmark decision to add the principle of safe and healthy work environment to the category of fundamental principles and rights at work, and amend the ILO Declaration on Fundamental Principles and Rights at Work accordingly. So all ILO member states are now obligated to obey this. And I believe, as the Honorable mentioned before, Ghana is in fact one of the ILO member states. So when we look at the UN Global Compact, as I mentioned before, SDG 8 is seen as the top priority for UN Global Compact companies. 65% of UN Global companies have reported in 2020 that they have taken specific action on SDG 8. 94% have policies and practices on advancing labor rights. 88% of companies reported that policies have been in place to ensure safe working conditions. But only 17% responded that companies benchmark supply chains partners to the 10 principal goals. So our ambition is to actually increase these numbers. So the UN Global Compact works very, very closely with the ILO and its participating companies to integrate these principles into business operations. Last year in December, we launched the ILO e-learning modules to provide guidance and support to companies to strengthen their respect for labor standards and embedding and implementing the UN Global Compact labor principles on all aspects of business operations. And these modules currently are on our Academy websites and are available for all companies to take advantage of. We have also developed with the ILO 9 business practices to improve safe and healthy through supply chains and creating a culture of protection and prevention. And so this brief will help companies in taking concrete steps to improve health and safety throughout their supply chains. And it is about implementing working conditions for the environment for workers to ensure their safety and health is maintained while working to provide compensation for work-related injuries and costs. So it looks at both the prevention side and the protection side, and that is actually very key. A lot of the programs actually that we do with the Global Compact, we do recognize that there are lots of issues there, but one of the big things that we do is focus on the prevention side. Because especially remember that we're dealing with businesses. Businesses are always improving. Businesses are always developing. And for a business, what they want is not to continuously deal with the same problem, fixing the same problem. What they want to do is to improve. And so putting policies together that will work towards prevention, that is actually that is actually something that is better. So unsafe and healthy working conditions often result in a combination of underlying causes, and these causes would be governance gaps, deficiency in legislative frameworks, insufficient knowledge and resources, unsustainable business practices, and the lack of cultural prevention at national and workplace levels. Governments and enterprises have their respective roles to play in addressing OSH challenge. So there is one example I can think of a very good preventative measure, and I think this one started at an SME. At one point, I used to work at a bakery, and you would think to yourself, oh, bakery, that's very simple. Make sure that you clean everything up very well, make sure you keep the place nice, neat, and clean, and all these other things. But there was another issue that was noted in the bakery. A lot of us, because we were breathing in a lot of flour, there's a lot of flour up in the air. You're breathing that in, and that's causing some kind of harm. Right? It's not an immediate thing you think about, because you're thinking about wet floors, just thinking about, contaminated products and what's it called, workstations and so forth, but not flour. So we had a conversation with our manager and said, some of us were developing like this cough because of the flour, and we think something should be done about it. And because the management had this culture of safety and this culture of listening to the employees on the ground, he said, okay, let's see what we can do. So over time, the company invested and got filtration masks. This was way before COVID, to help with the breathing issue. And you know what's interesting about that? About 50% of the people who used to call in sick because they developed colds and so forth declined. So you see how looking at one issue solved so many other issues in the organization. Okay, so getting back to the 9 business practices that the ILO and the UN Global Compact developed, this is what they are. The first thing you do is to map your supply chains to get a better understanding of existing OSH challenges. So what you want to do is to do some reconnaissance on your supply chains and gather information. And gathering that information, look at the data, see what it's telling you, and then do further investigations and engagements to see what can be done to address these challenges. Number 2, include OSH and employment injury protection in procurement practices. And number 3, improve the monitoring of OSH compliance, including closer engagements with suppliers. Then the 4th is promote vertical and horizontal knowledge and capacity sharing. And that's, with a small example I gave you, that's a good one. Number 5, align and complement the national, legal, and policy framework and be a driver for improvement. So this is actually a key one. And I really appreciate hearing from the National Petroleum, the National Petroleum Agency, National Petroleum Corporation Authority, National Petroleum Authority. I really appreciate something that he said. And what he said was that we had an accident, and then immediately we looked at safety with regards to the liquid gas. I was actually, when he mentioned the atomic blast, I was literally walking towards the atomic blast when it happened. I was a young person at the time. I still am a young person. And what I really admired was just how quickly the changes came. Today, almost every single gas station I have been to, there is literally safety instructions everywhere. Doesn't matter if it's a small community or in a large urban area, you will see safety signs everywhere. They tell you what to do, where to park your car, what not to do, what to do with your phone, how close you can be to certain machinery and things like that. And that's the appropriate response. Then the next one I want to look at is number 6, promoting workers' participation and social dialogues. Now, this is a very interesting one because one of the things we have observed, particularly in Ghana, is that a lot of times workers are afraid to talk or they're afraid to take action, mostly because they think that, well, if they haven't been told to do this or that, they don't want to get into trouble, so they don't say anything. Even in my own office, I've had issues like this. What I've always done is that we provided an environment where I say, listen, I need you to tell me something if you think is what we are doing is wrong, regardless of how you think I feel. Yes, I'm the boss, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to ignore information that is very critical. And I think that type of leadership starts from the top. So creating that culture and that environment that enables workers to openly participate, especially on OSH issues. And also sometimes the solutions are going to come from them. Sometimes, if you're working in a factory or if you're working in a company that is very labor intensive, there are going to be things that you may not be aware of or may come to your attention. But having a very open environment for employees to communicate will help in eliminating some of these issues. Number 7, support efforts to enhance the reporting, recording, and notification of occupational injuries and diseases to improve data collection. Sometimes, no matter what a company does and all the efforts they put in, still things happen and accidents happen. This is also prevalent in heavy labor-intensive activities like construction, manufacturing, mining, and so forth. But lessons are learned, improvements are made, and safety measures put in place. So the collection of data is very important. And then number 8, engage with development partners to share knowledge of good practices and innovate approaches to build capacity and partnerships. So for example, working with an organization like IOSH, very, very key and significant. Working with the UN Global Compact, very significant. But then also other organizations. And the reason why this is important is because for businesses, we will do our best to make sure that we have, dot our I's and cross our T's. But we have organizations that this is their bread and butter to look and examine these issues. So keeping abreast with the issues, keeping abreast with the development partners that work consistently on this will keep you informed, keep your company informed to always make improvements as the years go by. And then looking at number 9, join international initiatives to support the development of national policies and strengthen national institutions in sourcing countries on OSH practices and employment injury protection. So, yes, this one is key for several reasons. Number 1, when you join the international initiatives, you are getting perspectives from other countries and solutions that may not have been thought of in your country, but might be relevant to you. That's number 1. Number 2, it gives the company an opportunity to take a more leadership role in promoting policies and discussions and advocacy on OSH. And 3, taking such a leadership position is good for your brand and also makes you a leader in that sector, in that particular area. And that builds the reputation of the company and build the reputation of the industry as you begin to foster change in that environment. So as the UN Global Compact, we want to help companies in their sustainability journeys, and with all companies regardless of size, sector, or geographic location. So what we do at the UN Global Compact is when a company joins, most of the time they're not aware of some of these issues. They're not aware of what it means to be a sustainable company or how to embark on that journey. So we provide the tools necessary to help companies to go on that sustainable journey and implement those policies. A lot of these tools that we have, a lot of them are free actually for a lot of companies, regardless if you're a member or not. And then for the other ones, we have different sections where we introduce specific tools on these areas. So for example, we have economic growth and decent work tool, specific tool that was developed with the ILO and other UN agencies to help companies take a much more deeper dive in looking at providing solutions on labor rights and respecting labor rights and understanding what that means. And then looking at the research of the impact of these policies have on both the company and the community. We connect also with industry experts and peers within the UN at the global and national level to provide more knowledge and skills in making progress to deliver impact. So that's the one aspect of it. At some point in time, a company becomes very, well-versed in some of these things. So now they become leaders. So in the Global Compact, when a company becomes pretty much a leader in that specific field or area, they have an opportunity. Is my time running out? Okay. Wow, and I actually thought I didn't put down enough. Interesting. So what we do is that we help the companies then become a leader in that space. A lot of these companies go on to become to form action platforms, peer groups, and coalitions, not only within the UN Global Compact, but also outside of the UN Global Compact, to tackle a specific area of sustainability, and OSH is becoming one of them. And to quickly wrap up, in March of this year, we are launching our new communication of progress reporting mechanism for our participants. So all companies have been required to write a report on their impact on the 10 principles in all the areas. And we will have specific required questions on occupational safety and health for all workers engaged in their operations. So not only do we provide the learning and the tools, but we also have the platform for which UN Global Compact companies can then become accountable to their peers and to the public. And I had more, but I'm going to wrap up here. One final note is that occupational health and health, OSH, is very, very important because we are trying to take care, we're trying to build businesses, yes, we're trying to add to the economy, yes, but we have to remember that workers form the backbone of every economy. Whether it's in the former sectors or in the former sector, they form the backbone of the economy. They're the ones that are also paying most of the taxes and contributing to the nation. So we also have to make sure that as businesses we take care of them. We prevent them from getting sick, we prevent them from getting hurt, we increase their livelihoods, because when we do, the country will be stronger and better for it. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much. We're going to get your presentation, right? Yeah, we'll get you a script.
Yes, I'll send it later.
Thank you. A big round of applause for him, please. Mr. Larry Mojola, where is he? Yeah, okay. So that was the gentleman I introduced on public-private collaboration. Sir, your absence got me fumbling. I take it as a health issue. I will bring you a bill. He's from where? Lagos State Safety Commission. Oh, oil country, they have money. It works. But first, let me introduce Dorothy. Now, pushing for occupational health services for all requires a lot of hard work. A lot of hard work, which includes, again, collaborations between IOSH practitioners and primary healthcare schemes. Now, to give us a great insight into that is, let me get the name right, Dr. Dorothy Ngajilo, WHO Global Program Consultant. Please welcome her.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting WHO to this very important event. Deputy Minister of Employment and Labor Relations, IOSH President, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. I am honored and quite privileged to stand in front of you today to represent WHO and speak about this very important topic about scaling up occupational health coverage for health workers, for workers in the context of universal health coverage, but also including health and safety of health workers. So for this presentation today, I will just talk about first the link between occupational health and safety and primary health care. I'll also inform you about the protection of health and safety of health workers and outline the role of most of you as occupational health and safety practitioners in ensuring that there's health and safety for all, but also ensuring that the safeguard of health and safety of health workers. So to begin, I would like to present this quote from the Director General of WHO, where he said, "Health does not begin in hospitals and clinics, but it starts in our homes, streets, communities, schools, and workplaces." So this has the prevention message to it, saying that by the time you get to the hospital, it's too late. We need to make sure that people are healthy in their homes, streets, communities, school, and most importantly for us here today, in our workplaces. And just to set the scene for the presentation that I'm going to give, I'd like to play this video of a speech from the Director General that will set the scene for the presentation. Sorry, there's no sound. Sorry.
Social well-being is one of the fundamental rights.
Okay, sorry, I'll start again.
Dear colleagues and friends, the enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of physical, mental, and social well-being is one of the fundamental rights of every person. However, every year, more than 2 million people die as a result of their work, and many more suffer occupational diseases and injuries. Mental health disorders affect about 1 in 6 workers. The COVID-19 pandemic has put even more physical and mental stress on workers. Health systems cannot continue to treat people and send them back to the same working conditions that made them sick in the first place. As the world rebuilds from the profound disruptions of the pandemic, we need to consider how we can do so in a sustainable way. First, governments, businesses, and workers' associations can work together to make workplaces healthier, safer, and more resilient to public health crises. Second, we need to expand occupational health services and integrate working life into people-centered care as part of our efforts towards universal health coverage. Third, we need to implement occupational health and safety programs in all health facilities, following the recent guidance issued by WHO and ILO. Later this year, WHO will publish global guidelines on mental health at work. Thank you all for your ongoing commitment to making the world's workplaces healthier, safer, and fairer. I wish you a productive meeting. I thank you.
Even before the pandemic, there was increased political commitment to act on health and safety at work. So this is reflected in the United Nations General Assembly high-level meeting on universal health coverage, where heads of state and government committed to two major things as far as occupational health and safety is concerned. The first thing is to scale up efforts to promote healthier, safer workplaces, and to improve access to occupational health services. And this is relevant, noting that more than 2 million people die every year from preventable occupational diseases and injuries. The second thing that the heads of states and government committed to was to take necessary steps at the country level to protect health workers from all forms of violence, attacks, harassment, and discrimination, and to promote their decent working conditions. And taking from these two commitments, this informs the two parts of my presentation. So the first part of the presentation is looking at occupational health and safety in this context of universal health coverage. And with universal health coverage, meaning that people and communities receive the health care they need without suffering financial hardships. So, and this is in general, but should also be specific to occupational health, that workers, people should be able to receive occupational health services without suffering financial hardships. And to do this, WHO recommends to ensure that the working life is put as part of the people-centered care, which is the core of universal health coverage. And how does this look like? What are the recommendations from WHO on how the health of the workers can be put in the center of this people-centered care? First is by strengthening the responsibility of primary healthcare providers to be able to provide health-related aspects of personal life, family, and working life. So as we may be aware, most primary healthcare providers do not know may not even know what occupational health and safety is. What that term maybe remains with us, occupational health and safety professionals. So in order for the people, particularly those who work in the informal sector, to be able to access health and safety services, they can be able to get it through their primary healthcare provider. And to do that, these healthcare providers must be empowered to be able to provide these services. Secondly is by building capacities of the primary healthcare centers to respond effectively to the general needs of the populations, of the working populations. Thirdly is by linking occupational health services with the primary care centers under the local primary healthcare networks. This is to mean that there's need to be referral networks between the primary health care. They should be able to know where, in case there's someone with an occupational health disease or an injury, where to take them for further management. And lastly is to empower and support individuals to be able to take care of their own health. So the referral pathways that I was speaking about, and basically this is the representation and illustration of how occupational health can be integrated into primary health care. So at the center, you have the primary health care team, which provides this continuous, comprehensive, person-centered care, that a person can go there for malaria, maybe diarrhea or any other disease, but they can be equipped to be able to provide occupational health services as well. And these primary health care teams can be supported by the Occupational Health Service, who are connected to occupational hygiene, safety engineering, occupational psychology, but also the primary health care team can be supported by workplaces, health and safety committees, and trade unions, business partners. And in case they detect an occupational disease or injury, or they take over a person with an occupational health issue, then they should be able to refer. So they could be connected to a bigger hospital or specialized personal care with occupational medicine, toxicology, silicosis centers, rehabilitation centers, etc. So this is how it's envisioned, how the primary healthcare teams can work together with IOSH professionals and other actors within the health sector and outside to be able to provide care. So the question maybe is, why is this important for you as an IOSH practitioner? We think that IOSH practitioners are an important resource for this integration of health and primary health care. Like I said, most health workers in primary health care may not even have an idea what occupational health is. So this is where the IOSH practitioner comes in to provide leadership and technical support in all areas that relate to occupational health and safety, but also in enabling these primary healthcare professionals to be able to go into workplaces, doing hazard evaluations, identify occupational hazards, and advise on control measures, conduct preventive medical examinations for workers at high risk of occupational exposures, assess and manage sickness, absence, and return to work, and also to provide employers and workers on, with advice on improving the working conditions. But also there's the opportunity to collaborate with primary healthcare professionals to promote health in the workplace, not just occupational health, but also other health issues, because like I said, health begins not only, does not begin in the hospital, it can also start in the workplace. So you have a good opportunity to promote this in the workplace. So before I proceed to the next section, if there's any reaction or comment from anyone. Otherwise, I will proceed. So the second part of my presentation is on safeguarding the health and safety and well-being of health workers. As it's been previously said by Alan, is that we cannot talk about health of the workers without thinking about the health worker who provides the services. If anything we've learned from the COVID-19 pandemic is that health workers are important and the backbone and are the backbone of the health systems. So it's important to ensure that their health and safety is safeguarded before they safeguard the health of others. As my supervisor always says, even in the plane, they usually say, put a mask, when worse comes to worse, put an oxygen mask on yourself before you put it even on a child. So we need to make sure that these people who take care of us are also well taken care of. So I don't need to convince you with data of what are the hazards in the health sector, but it is considered one of the most hazardous sectors in general. So this is data from Africa, and it shows that 41% of health workers are exposed to hepatitis B, C, HIV yearly, and this results in 12,000 cases of infection every year. There's less than 18% of health workers have been vaccinated against hepatitis B, which is unacceptable. About 54% of workers in low and middle income countries have latent TB infection. And during the Ebola outbreak in 2014-2016, the risk of infection in health workers was shown to be up to 32 times higher than the general population. The COVID-19 pandemic, during the first 17 months, more than 2,000 health workers died from COVID. And chronic low back pain is a major issue from unsafe patient handling, affecting up to 83% of health workers. Mental health has been mentioned over and over. Medical professionals are not immune. They higher risk of suicide in all parts of the world. And during the COVID-19 pandemic specifically, the 23% of health workers suffered depression and anxiety, and 39% had insomnia. And violence is another major issue, with up to 100% of health workers in Africa reporting experiencing incidents of violence in the health sector. So like I said, this is unacceptable, and to respond to this, WHO and ILO last year issued a guide for development and implementation of occupational health and safety programs for health workers. And in this guide, WHO and ILO advocates for occupational health and safety to be scaled up in the health sector. And these are the 5 key recommendations, policy actions that needs to be taken to ensure that the health and safety of health workers is safeguarded. First is to develop programs for occupational health and safety at all levels, at the national, subnational, and facility levels, but also to introduce new and update existing regulations and standards of practice. As you may all be witnesses, health and safety in other industry is a very important issue. We've had from the petroleum industry, we've had even from a small bakery that he was working, the health and safety is important. But why is this becoming an issue when it comes to health workers? And so it's something that we need to think about. You'll find in some countries there is an Occupational Health and Safety Act, but it excludes public service workers, which include health workers, which is unacceptable. And some countries do not even have that protection of health workers. So the protection of health and safety should become part and parcel of the management of healthcare at all levels, just in any other industry. Health and safety should be part of the management goals, just as we are looking at financial issues, then health and safety of health workers should be also looked at the same way. Health workers should have access to competent occupational health services. This is a no-brainer. Health workers provide health services, but why don't they have access to these services themselves? And synergies are needed between the occupational health programs and collaboration with other stakeholders, including yourselves, to ensure that the health and safety of health workers is protected. So again, as IOSH practitioners, you have an important role. First is advocating for the health and safety of health workers, but also advice on improving working conditions. You'd be surprised, even in the health sector. I'm an occupational medicine specialist, but even when I explain that to my colleagues that I graduated with, it's a hassle to explain what occupational health and safety is. They'll say, oh, are you an occupational therapist? Are you an occupational hygienist? So they know everything except occupational health and safety. So it's important to have that advocacy and explain that, okay, this is occupational health. And for some reason, health workers think they're immune to occupational health and safety issues. I mean, also I'm coming from Tanzania. So you'll find we're sitting in the compensation board, and you will get all people from everywhere, miners, people from every industry except health workers, and they have the major issues as I've seen. And when you speak to them, like, we didn't think that's an issue. Health workers have died from COVID and they've not been compensated and things like that. So it's important for you to go out there and advocate for occupational health and safety for our people who take care of us. Also, to promote the preventative culture, including supporting these facility managers to be able to develop and implement occupational health and safety in the health sector. Just before I conclude, I want to highlight this upcoming project between African Union, WHO, and ILO on occupational health and safety of health workers. And this is a collaboration on safeguarding the health and safety of health workers in Africa. And the aim of this collaboration is to build political commitment for placing health worker safety in the center of healthcare management. So it's important, for example, we have the Deputy Minister here for employment and labor relations. So this is the level of political commitment that we want for health workers as well. The collaboration between the Ministry of Labor and the Ministry of Health to ensure that the health and safety of health workers is safeguarded. Also raising awareness about occupational hazards for health workers and low-cost solutions, building capacities, so have training of the people, focal points who provide health and safety services, who develop and implement these programs for health workers in order for them to be able to develop policies and programs for health workers, and also creating a mechanism for exchange of experience between countries. So it will be a project that will be done according to the regional economic groupings. So we have SADC, we have ECOWAS, and other regional economic groupings, and we hope Ghana will be part of that, as we understand from WHO that Ghana has a good occupational health and safety programs for health workers. So countries such as Ghana would provide experience to other countries so that they can be able to provide these services to the health workers. So just to conclude with the key messages, is it's important that we link occupational health and safety and primary health care to ensure that even the people who are not employed in larger companies are able to access occupational health and safety services. And we also need to protect our health workers by ensuring that, because the protection of health and safety of health workers ensures quality of care, it ensures regulatory compliance of the health sector, and also increases the resilience of health system. And also health workers are retained in their system if they know that they are well taken care of. And lastly, you as occupational health and safety practitioners have an important role to play in all of this. Thank you.
In Ghana, we give ladies a louder round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, let's now welcome Mr. Larry Monjola, who is going to give us an insight of the collaboration between the public-private sectors in terms of working on IOSH issues. Please welcome him. There are questions coming in from Slido. There is one that I will put to the Honorable Deputy Minister. So just after Mr. Monjo will do that.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you. My name is Larry Monjola. I'm the Director General, Chief Executive Officer, Lagos State Safety Commission. And I've been given this topic to speak about, which is private. Can I have my slides, please? It's public-private collaboration towards national IOSH systems. I'll start with a quote. Next slide, please. That states, "The safety of the people shall be the highest law." And this quote was by a Roman statesman. Next slide, please. Or can I have the... Okay. All right, good. That's fine. Makes it easy. So he says, "The safety of the people shall be the highest law." This was over 2,000 years ago by a statesman called Marcus Tullius Cicero. Now, the question is, if we figured it out over 2,000 years ago that the safety of the people shall be the highest law, then what are we doing now? That's the question. What are we doing now? If we figured this out over 2,000 years ago, then what are we doing now? But whatever it is we're doing now, we're just not doing enough. We need to do a whole lot more. So for me, the whole point of being here today is really to talk about protecting lives by preventing accidents. Accidents that lead to injuries, accident that leads to fatalities. And that's the whole point of my presentation. I'll just share a few snippets as to the kind of reality that we face by managing safety in Lagos State. Now, my agency reports to Mr. Governor of the state. Lagos State is a state that has over 23 million people. It is over 10% of Nigeria with over 200 million people. And it's a melting pot where you find everybody from every single village in Lagos State with different languages, different cultures, different characters. And we then need to manage everyone in that small space. Unfortunately, it's also the smallest geographical land size. So it's a big part for people that have been to Lagos. You will see a lot of the traffic that we face. So these are just snippets of the kind of things that we face. And this is really our reality. Fire kills 3 factory workers, several other injured. Lagos teenage factory worker killed in industrial accident on resumption day. Emphasis is on resumption day. Lagos worker loses hand in factory accident, firm blames victim. Firm blames victim. That's the focus. So the issues, these are the real issues. The fact that people are scared to talk about safety. Citizens don't know what their human rights are. I'm happy that today's topic is focusing on OSH as a fundamental human right. We need to create a lot more advocacy to let people speak up. To let people speak up and not be afraid to speak up, because if they speak up, they might lose their jobs. Yes, we know that everyone tries to hold on to their jobs, but safety is everyone's responsibility. And we cannot continue to allow the culture of bullying, of harassment, of not speaking up continue. Because if we do, then we're all not doing what the Roman statesman said over 2,000 years ago. Some of these incidents, as a commission, we investigate. We find some, we jail a lot. We've sent a number of people to prison for gross contraventions concerning occupational safety and health. So to just go straight to my topic, which is how do we work with the private sector? I'm speaking from the point of the government, from the point of a regulator. And what we've realized is that it's very important for us to collaborate between stakeholders. It is not us against you, it is not you against us. The federal government of Nigeria ratified the ILO Convention number 155 as far back as 1994, with the firm belief that safety and health are basic human requirements. But then again, where are we today? At the Safety Commission, we clearly align with two main SDG goals, SDG goals 3 and 8, good health and well-being, and decent work and economic growth. And the whole point is aimed at ensuring that workers are safe at their workplaces in Lagos State. So we feel that collaboration is something that we need to do. We have to engage with all the stakeholders across board, government, employers, workers, organizations, and the likes. And what we've realized now is that it's not a straitjacket, it's not a one-size-fits-all. We need to create, we need to find local solutions for local problems. And some of the slides that I would have will speak directly to this. So what are the steps? The 5 main pillars towards effective public partnership, collaboration with regards to OSH. The first is joint policy development and implementation, sharing of information and best practices, all the way down to joint advocacy and outreach. I'll speak a bit more about these as my slides go on. But just a brief about what we are and what we do. The Safety Commission is just about 10 years now. It was established by the law of the House of Assembly in 2011, at a time when the state was ballooning in size, and that there was no coordination at all. People were dying in factories, and people were getting maimed, and there was really nothing. There was no law, there was no order. Employers were getting away with bullying and harassment, and fires were happening, and there was really no one to coordinate that process. And the then governor, through the House of Assembly, established the Lagos State Safety Commission with the key mandate to protect lives and property. And we do this across board. So we're responsible for occupational safety. We're also responsible for public safety in Lagos State. And just like the last speaker said, it is very difficult when you talk to people about occupational safety and health. I remember there was a meeting we had in Abuja, which is the capital, and we had a meeting with senators, and we said occupational safety and health. But what is happening to this bill? And they said, what do you mean by occupational safety and health? Safety is security. We have police, we have the army, we have the navy. And health, we have the doctors and the dentists. So what are you guys talking about? It's that kind of mental state. It's just the way they see it. So the onus is for us to try and engage them to make them understand, because indeed they're the ones doing the laws. And in truth, if they don't understand what OSH is, then how do they make the laws to be able to guide everyone and protect everyone? So I think we all need to do a lot more in ensuring that everyone understands what we're preaching. Because if they don't understand what we're preaching, there will be a dichotomy, and we'll just continue to say the same thing over and over and again. So our vision is to make safety a lifestyle in Lagos. We do this by a number of things, inspections and the likes, but the whole point is our emphasis is on building a sustainable safety culture. We theme the themes agenda, and our work and our interventions cover all the way from traffic management and transportation to security and governance. So I'll just speak back to those 5 pillars that I mentioned earlier. This is joint policy development and implementation. And I'll give you some of the practical examples, and you'll understand why we need to engage with people to be able to provide the right IOSH systems to support them. So I'll take, for example, the Lagos State Waterway Safety Code. We realized that Lagos State is surrounded by water. 3 to 5 million people move every day in Lagos State. But everybody gets on the road. So you could be in traffic for 6 hours. Yes, 6 hours. Seriously, 6 hours. Anybody been to Lagos and stuck in traffic for 6 hours or even more? Good. So we realized that we need to move people from the roads to the waterways. But again, everybody was scared to go on the waterways. There were no appropriate safety regulations. There was no standard guiding the operations. So what we did was we sat with the agency that was responsible for waterway safety and said, what do we need to do? And then realized that the first thing we had to do was to create the Lagos State Safety Waterways Code, which meant that we needed to engage with all the stakeholders across that ecosystem, from the boat operators to the sand miners, to the fishermen, to the dredgers. I didn't realize that the waterways was an ecosystem on its own. And some of the challenges we saw were things that were not just localized to Lagos alone. So I'll give you an example. Boat operators complain that their boats capsize, that they're having problems with grad safety. But some of these issues are coming from people that are bringing wood, the loggers that are harvesting wood. Bring the wood in from 2-3 states. The wood gets off, they tie them together, they get into the boat operators, the engines of these boats, and clogs the boats then capsize. Again, the dredgers, they will dredge, the local dredgers, so they'll dredge heaps of sand, and the boats will then go on top of them, and then what happens? The boats collapse, and people die. And so we had to bring everybody together to say, okay, what exactly are your issues? How can we jointly develop a policy that works for everyone? I'm pleased to announce safer in Lagos State. The second that I'll just quickly speak about is the COVID-19 guidelines, which we produced. So after the shutdown and everybody had the lockdown, nobody knew what COVID really was. How do you manage something that you're not aware of? Yes, we're leaning on the NCDC, the WHO, for directives and directions, but we didn't have enough understanding because it was a new thing that was happening all over the world. It was not just a local problem. So we had to sit with all the stakeholders along the supply chain saying, okay, what are the things we need to do to get the state running again? But again, don't forget that the state has over 20 million people. It is indeed the heartbeat of Nigeria. So it is very important to collaborate. It's very important to understand that everybody is a stakeholder. The second is sharing of information and best practices. Again, just the way we disseminated information during the COVID-19, engaging people across the whole supply chain, from the market women to the traders, and the likes. 1 second, please. So it is more than important that information has to be shared. You have the information, you need to share it. You need to let people engage with information. They need to understand what it is that you're passing, and they need to buy it and deliver that message on your behalf. Because once you get them on board, it makes it much easier for them to then disseminate the information. joint training and capacity building efforts, we realized that firstly, you need to create awareness. And how do you create awareness? You need to have training sessions, and you need to build capacity. And what we've done over the last 3 years basically is picking selected people from the roads official, public officials, to the road sweepers, traffic controllers, all the way to environmental safety officers. Let them understand the importance of occupational safety and health. I'll pick an example, the road sweepers. So we noticed that road sweepers were getting knocked off regularly on our roads, as early as 5:30, 5 a.m., 4:30. And what we realized was that they were carrying out their activities in a very unsafe manner. Yes, we're hoping to move towards mechanized cleaning and all, but then again, if you bring in a mechanized cleaning equipment, what is happening is you're trading off in terms of numbers of people that are off the job market. So we realized that people will be cleaning the roads and they'll be back in the roads. They would not have any safety signages, so cars were just knocking them off. So we did a lot of training for these people to let them understand the importance of safety, and also letting them understand that safety actually starts and finishes and ends with them. And if they own it, then it's easier for them to react. If an incident occurs, they can quickly move if they see danger coming. And since we started the training, we've trained over 6,000 of them, and the numbers of accidents have reduced considerably. Joint research and development of safety standards and guidelines. Again, where there's no rule, there's no law. Where there are no regulations, and people just do as they like. And what we realized was that we had to start to develop these regulations. How did we develop these regulations? Some of the people that are sitting here, our partners, have helped us, IOSH and the likes, SIF and the likes, the ILO, the federal government, where we realized that, yes, we have to bring everybody together to one room to speak the same language. And these regulations, some of them were passed. For example, the swimming pool regulations were passed. Construction safety is still ongoing. The early years, we've reached an advanced stage, which we're waiting for the House of Assembly to adopt, and then it becomes a law. Aside regulations, we also realized that there was a need for us to have an occupational safety master plan. And indeed, I'm pleased to announce that it's the first of its kind in Nigeria, where a safety commission would have an occupational safety master plan. And this master plan basically highlights, thank you. And this master plan basically highlights a roadmap, a 5-year, a 10-year plan as to where we want to be in terms of occupational safety in the state. And like I said, whatever we do in Lagos resonates across the country. So it's our hope, indeed, that in another 5 years, across the country, people would understand the importance of occupational safety and health. Collaboration with the Lagos State Neighborhood Safety Corps on whistleblowing, collaboration with the Nigerian police on accident and investigation. Again, joint advocacy and outreach to raise awareness on IOSH issues. This I think is very important. It's the last pillar, but I think it's indeed probably the most important, because advocacy has to be on a continuous basis, and it has to be sustained. Safety is not something that you'll say you're safe today and tomorrow I'm not safe. It has to be a continuous practice. So we continue to engage with the stakeholders in this sector, continue to have joint advocacy, MAN, NECA, the Nigerian Insurance Association, IOSH, and the likes. But the whole point is for us to ensure that people start to think safe before they act. Now, just a few slides before I finish my presentation. So what are the challenges that we face? Lack of safety awareness through education and training, culture of blame. I think culture of blame is a huge one. Maybe because we're Africans, there's always, maybe because the way we've been brought up, it's almost very natural for your mom or your dad to just blame you immediately. And we've taken this on, you know, that I can't speak because I've got seniors. I can't, I'm just gonna, whatever they say to me, I'll just take it like that. But hey, ladies and gentlemen, for us to change the thinking, we need to speak up. We need to own it. You see it, you own it, you know. Lack of documentation, inspections and audits, stakeholders engagement, like we mentioned, advocacy and sensitization. READR is a particularly interesting one because it's not something that, I mean, if maybe here in Ghana, maybe you have data, but Okay, I don't think I need to speak more about that. We all understand what we're talking about. But it's so important for us to be able to understand what the problems are. It's reporting of injuries, diseases, and dangerous occurrences. Because if you don't understand where the problems are, how do you solve them? And I'll give an example. 2 years ago, we realized that there were a lot of our public drivers, we call them downfall drivers, driving on one-ways. And as at 12 noon, about this time, they're already drunk. And these were people that were moving millions of people. So we were having a lot of accidents. We were having a lot of road accidents. So we said, what do we do? Let's go back and talk to these downfall drivers. They have an association. And what we realized was as early as at 5:30 in the morning, they started taking alcohol. All these little sachets of liquor. So by the time they start work at 6:37, they're already half drunk, taking people to work. So by 12 noon, they're over their heads. So when they're taking the one-ways, you think they're normal people. They're absolutely not normal. So what we now had to do was realize that even the sellers of these liquors, they were in their garages. So we now needed to move those people away from close proximity to them. You know? But we wouldn't have done this if we didn't have data. But the data that we had was speaking to the fact that there was something wrong within the transportation sector. Weak compliance and enforcement, and obviously political interference. So solutions towards public-private collaboration and IOSH implementation, leadership and followership commitment, the ability to see it, to own it, to preach it, to act it. Do as I do, not as I say. Networking and collaboration, likes of events like this, we need to continue to have these events and support them wholly. We're the only ones that can preach our profession, and that's the truth. Medical doctors will preach their profession, engineers will preach their profession, IOSH professionals need to speak up. We need to do a lot more in supporting ourselves. Establishment and communication of risks and emergency plans, clearly understood, yes, clearly understood. Let us ensure that we break the language barrier. If you need to speak to them in their local dialect, speak to them in their local dialect. If we need to create songs that they understand, that they connect with, create these songs, you know. And lastly, everyone's involvement in acting together. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. And on behalf of those alcoholics, I would like to ask, are they complaining? Okay, so we have some quick questions. Is it possible to throw them up here? A couple of questions for Employment Ministry. Yeah, please take the camera there so we get it. Can our leadership in Parliament work to pass the bill of Occupational Health, Safety and Environment, which was drafted years ago? That's from... Why? Calm down. That's from Gabriel. And another one, almost in the same line, Raymond Ataji. Mr. Deputy Minister, may I know the status of the draft National Occupational Health and Safety Bill? Don't applaud, stop it. Can we get an extra microphone here, please?
It appears almost all of us are very much interested in the passage of the IOSH bill. The process of lawmaking is quite cumbersome. It doesn't just go to Parliament. As we speak, it is not before Parliament. The ministry has been working with stakeholders. We are far advanced. We've gone first to Cabinet, and Cabinet perused it, they discussed it, and got back to us. Indeed, this is an area where lots of collaboration is needed. And there are varied interests. The MPA is interested, the EPA is interested, the mining sector is interested. So we need to get on board and really look at all the facets of this very law before it gets again to Cabinet. They bring it back, we involve the Attorney General, we look at the pros and cons. Then it will first go to Parliament before it is laid. So that is the process. As we speak now, Cabinet has referred it back to the ministry, and we are yet to engage the stakeholders that I have just named, and then we will take it back to cabinet. And so, but we hope, the good news is that it's the minister's target to ensure that by close of year, we get it passed. Just that he doesn't have control over when it gets to cabinet and when it gets to AG and all that, but we'll be pushing. And of course, resources are also needed in all these processes. So just be patient, and even the outcome of this conference will be incorporated in the bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we can have timelines as to maybe approximately, not yet. Okay. All right. NPA. To the NPA, how are fuel stations audited on safety adherence? Can audit reports be published to ensure we find ourselves buying from complying stations?
Well, every fuel station that is operating is NPA compliant, basically. So any station that is shut means that it has been non-compliant and it has been shut. And the shutting off process is normally swift and fast. So I can assure everybody that any fuel station that you find dispensing fuel is NPA certified and you can buy fuel from it. People often ask, are there certain OMC that do not sell safe fuel? The answer is no. All the fuel that you find in every station, whether the station is called Hamid Station or whatever oil or Razak Energy, is all wholesome and is of the same standard quality. All of it is from the same source. The only thing that differs is pricing. And of course, it's because Ghana deregulated way back in 2015. Under deregulation, I mean, the pricing will be different depending on how much profit every OMC wants to put on its station. Going forward, our plan, we are doing a whole rebranding process. So our plan actually after the rebranding process is to actually have every OMC display at its entrance an NPA sticker that notifies the public that it is an NPA certified station and you can buy fuel from it.
Thank you. Thank you. Alan, I will throw this one to you.
Thank you.
Does occupational safety and health as a fundamental labor right apply in all workplaces? And let me put this in context. As in, the workspace is changing by the day. Uber drivers and software writers in the situation where the employer is outside the country, but then the workers are in here. How do we classify them in the workspace? How does this affect them, and what interventions can be put in place to handle that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm no lawyer, so this is this may need refining by our good friends at the ILO, but work is work, whether you work in the informal sector, the formal sector, and most crucially, this emerging gig worker, you know, and I know we were in Asia recently and we were working with the ministry in Singapore and they were talking about emerging harm that's coming because of the changing way people work, Uber deliveries and things like that. And even there, for example, they changed the legislation to protect Uber workers, home delivery drivers, by not being able to be rewarded by activity. You know, they couldn't be paid per delivery because being paid per delivery was making them rush quickly. So it's happening across the world and it's something that's being addressed. The ILO declaration, of course, then has to be also taken into context with local legislation. And we know that in some countries, healthcare workers, public servants are written outside of workplace protection. And what we would desperately encourage and urge and beg police people in West Africa to not exclude anybody from the legislation because every life matters, everybody has the right to go home. So work is work, it's changing, we need to adapt and be agile with it and take everybody on that journey.
Thank you. Mr. Mojola, the last one comes to you. You mentioned the intervention for market workers. It sounds as if it ends at let's educate them and all that. So it's like an intervention at an arm's length. whose responsibility is it to ensure that those are taken care of? Maybe a special government agency is set up to handle those in the informal sector. In Ghana, for instance, we have a huge informal sector. And if occupational safety and health interventions are mostly for the formalized center, where you have a location that can be identifiable and a system that can be formalized, how do we handle those in the informal sector besides the public education, intensified education we are talking about?
Thank you. So I suppose for Lagos State, we've got a bit of a structure where the informal sector cuts across different ministries. So under Ministry of Transportation, you have the bus drivers. Under Ministry of Health, you've got the food operators. Under Ministry of Local Government, you've got the market traders, the men and women. But so those are the agencies that are directly responsible for their well-being. They're directly responsible for their welfare and the likes. However, you now have the Lagos State Safety Commission, whose role cuts across board. So we basically set the standards, we set the guidelines, the regulations, and the law in terms of occupational safety and health-being. So we work closely with all these different agencies and the informal sector. And also to just add that we're very, very keen on the non-formal sector in terms of understanding occupational safety, particularly in some particular industries that we're focusing on this year. We're focusing on the construction sector, the artisans, the tradesmen, the market women, and the food vendors. Yes.
Thank you very much. A big round of applause for all our Honorable Deputy Minister. I would like to thank you for coming to represent the meeting. I must say that you mentioned something about involving the lawmakers. Just about a month ago or so, we had the top tier of Parliament, and we engaged them on occupational health and safety standards, the leadership, and it was led by Honorable Deputy Minister. So Ghana is on course. A big round of applause for everybody. So we are quickly going for our coffee break. For VIP, our VIP guests, kindly follow this lady up this way, and she take it there. And for the rest of us, I'm told it's the left or the auditorium. My left or your left? This way, please. The rest of us will go this way for lunch. Let's come back here at, should we decide that? Because we've eaten into the time. Should we be back at 11:30? No. Okay. 35? No. 40? 40 is fine? Okay, let's rush out and come back at 11:40 and continue. Thank you very much.
We are different people from different nations, but with one voice, with one goal. Because we see safety as a priority, protecting our worth from injuries, putting all we can for the future we see. For when things we think safety, safety in our nation, and a healthier, brighter future for our people. So we stand for the laborer, for our vision of tomorrow starts today. So we've decided that we will sit and watch. So we stand up for the future with desire. For we think safety, safety for our people, safety in your workplace and your home. Yes, we think safety, safety in our nation, and the healthier, brighter future for our people. For we think safety, safety for our people, safety in your workplace and your home. Yes, we think safety, safety in our nation, the healthier, brighter future for our people. Whoa. We are different people from different nations, but with one voice, with one goal. Because we see safety as a priority, protecting our world from injuries, putting all we can for the future we see. For we think safety, safety for our people, safety in your workplace and your home. Yes, we think safety, safety in our nation, and a healthier, brighter future for all people. For we think safety, safety for our people, safety in your workplace and your home. Yes, we think safety, safety in our nation, and a healthier, brighter future for our people. So we stand for the laborer, for our vision of tomorrow starts today. So we've decided that we will sit and watch. So we stand up for the future with desire.